Hey everyone, WonderFizz here. Today we're going to be doing something that I've always wanted to do on my channel, and that's a video game review. I'm actually going to be doing video game reviews a lot, hopefully. So this is sort of the test the waters, try it out, and I'm hoping to do more of these because obviously I love playing video games and I like talking to my friends about what my rating for a game is. So why not just do it on YouTube? Um, we're going to start with a franchise that I love. Everyone who knows me knows that the first Ori and the Blind Forest game I absolutely adored. I thought it was a masterpiece. Loved it. Game made me cry. Loved the soundtrack. All of that. Um, and Ori and the Will of the Wisp was obviously one of my most anticipated games for 2020. And it actually worked perfectly because I actually never made a video talking about it. There's actually a reason why I never made a video talking about it, actually. So when I first played Ori and the Blind Forest back in 2015, I got it on launch because I thought the game looked great and it was sort of a dry period for Xbox and just games in general. So I was like, you know what, this game looks good, I'm gonna get it. Um, I loved it then, but I didn't think it was a masterpiece. When I first played the game and beat it, I thought it was probably an 8.5. And so I actually went back a couple years later. I think it was around 2016, so it was actually just a year later. Or it might have been 2017, and I replayed the game. And when I replayed the game, I found like a whole new love for the game. And that was when the masterpiece started to form. I was like, this game is way better than I remember. And then I replayed it again, and then I replayed it again, and that was when it hit me like, Ori and the Blind Forest is a masterpiece. So when I first played Will of the Wisp, just to spoil the review, I guess, I immediately thought this game was a masterpiece. So for a while, I didn't even talk to my friends about the game. I was like, I'm not going to give a rating for it because I was like, if the first Blind Forest game was an 8.5 and then on my replays it turned into a masterpiece, if Will of the Wisp is already a masterpiece, what is it going to turn into with all of my replays of the game? So I'm just going to go ahead and do my review for what I think of the game, and I might come back later. I have a lot to say about this game. First of all, the graphics, and just to say this before I get into this, I don't have much gameplay. Bear with me. I don't have a capture card or anything, so I'm not able to like record stuff. I've just got to get the clips that I recorded on Xbox. I recorded way more than this, but a lot of the stuff, these were like the best stuff that I could get to kind of show. So I'm gonna have a mix of the cover art and just random clips thrown in. So I don't have a lot of gameplay to show. Like I said, I'm sorry about that, but um, we'll just get right into it. The graphics of the game. This first clip you're seeing here is going to be from the start of the game. This is the clip I recorded at the start of the game when I first started the game, March 11th, on release night. And immediately I could tell, wow. Moon Studios have outdid themselves. They have created something even better looking than the first Blind Forest game, which I didn't think was possible. I didn't think it was possible to make Ori look better. I didn't think it was possible to make this world look better, but Moon Studios did that. This world is absolutely gorgeous. I love the sound design of the world. Little things like walking on wood and you hear the wood beneath your feet. Like it's just little things like that that they paid attention to. That little attention to detail that separates this game from Blind Forest. Because in Blind Forest, even little things like when you walk on like the big mushrooms in Will of the Wisp, they move. Everything in this world it feels alive. All these things that you walk on, they move. They make sounds. And that wasn't in the first Blind Forest game. When you walked on a mushroom, it was just in the world and it didn't move. But this one, it feels like it's actually there, and it just makes a difference. They added things like side quests in this game, which initially I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. But then I maybe had my doubts about like, are they going to make it work, or is it just going to be, you know, random side quests thrown in? Is it just going to be the typical side quest that you find in video games? But overall, I loved it. They had very unique side quests. There wasn't many side quests, but they were fun. Like helping all of these Mokis, which was one of my one of my favorite characters in this game. It was all these Mokis, which I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. It might be Mokai or something, but I just say Moki. They're adorable, and they've got funny dialogue, and you're helping them because they're all over the world and they need certain items, and so it's almost like you're passing each item. You give a Moki an item, they give you an item, and another Moki in the world is going to need that item, and the cycle repeats itself. And you do that about 10 times, somewhere around there, and you'll finally complete the quest. You have a main base. Um, you have like this sort of home area where all of these people are, and you can find ore within the world to help one of these miners um, mine. Obviously he's a miner, so he knows how to like do all this stuff, and he fixes all this stuff, and so you find this ore around the world, and he can upgrade your base, and it's not like it's not huge stuff. It's a lot of it's just for like look and decoration, but that's awesome because you're giving these creatures a home. You're giving these your companions a home, and it really adds depth to the world, in my opinion. Of you know you're supposed to care about these characters, and you do, and that's just one of the many things that you can do in the world. And obviously, in an Ori game, we have to talk about the soundtrack. The soundtrack to the first game was one of my favorite soundtracks ever. I bought it on I bought it on iTunes. I listened to it religiously. Absolutely love the soundtrack to that game. And Gareth Coker, man, I didn't think it was possible, but you created a soundtrack that was 10 times better than the first one. I mean, how in the world did you do it? Like, the first soundtrack was so beautiful, and, like, it brought tears to your eyes, and this soundtrack is, like, even better. Like, oh my god, like, how? I don't understand how he did it. Like, that was one of my biggest fears, actually, because I was like, man, the soundtrack in the first one was so good. I'm kind of scared. I'm kind of scared that the soundtrack's not going to be as good, because that was one of the things that people adored, even, just like, I would always hear from people like, oh, the Ori soundtrack is so beautiful, it's so beautiful. I was like, they got a lot of expectations, not only for the game, but the soundtrack. And in my opinion, they exceeded those expectations. I think that the soundtrack in this game was 10 times better than the first one, and that's saying something. Um, Obviously, the first soundtrack is still phenomenal, but man, the soundtrack to Will of the Wisp was beautiful. Um, and lastly, sort of talking about, before I get into any sort of story things or any sort of, um, I'm not going to, just to get it out there, I'm not going to touch too much on the story, because obviously I want this to sort of be a spoiler-free review. Um, but Shriek is the antagonist of this game. It's a new antagonist. Um, Not going to say much because, like I said, I don't want to spoil this. I really think that this is one of those games that you really just have to experience. Um, all I'm going to say is this. In typical Moon Studios fashion, the antagonist is not just your, oh, he's the bad guy, go get him. That's not the case here, just like it wasn't the case in the first game. And I'm happy with that. I'm happy that Moon Studios, in every way, add depth to their characters, to their world, and I'm very happy with that. I'm happy that in this game you just didn't have a typical, oh, bad guy, go get him. So that's all I'm going to say about that. It's just, I'm happy. And, I'm happy that Moon Studios continues to do that and add depth to their characters, even antagonists and all of that. I'm happy with that. Um, I absolutely loved the reworked combat in this game. Combat is night and day with Will of the Wisp compared to Blind Forest. Blind Forest, the combat obviously wasn't an area they focused on. The combat in the first game was simple. There wasn't much to it. It was pretty easy to understand. In this game, wow, like they went above and beyond with not just creating so many different types of weapons to use, but just the variety. You can use a bow and arrow. You can use this big giant hammer. You can use this sort of sword spear edge. There's so many different types of weapons and how they interact with each other, and how a lot of the, because you're given this sort of, at the bottom, you're giving 3 options. You can have 3 things equipped at a time. And, some of them are weapons, but some of them can also be used for other things. One of them can be used for traversal and all, like, oh my gosh. And obviously, the platforming is as good as ever in this game. New moves like Burrow, one of my favorite moves in one of my favorite areas, because obviously in an Ori game, they
With the map, every part of the map is utilized. There's no wasted space, and every area is different. It's unique, it has a unique look, and it has a unique mechanic. And Burrow was introduced in my favorite area, the Windswept Waste, and it is used to perfection. I absolutely loved going around the Windswept Waste because there's sand everywhere, and with Burrow, you're burrowing into the ground, and it is used perfectly. Yeah, you can use Burrow throughout the other parts of the world because there are some locations that utilize it. But in Windswept Waste, it is used to perfection. It is the main like mechanic that's used throughout that area of the map, and my God, I loved it. Um, and again, I can't emphasize enough just how well Moon Studios is with utilizing every part of the map and not putting in any wasted areas or any wasted space. If there's a part of the map, it is used for something and it looks totally different than another part of the map. I thought Ori and the Blind Forest was a masterpiece, and you know, it turned into one of my favorite games of all time. After all my replays, I loved it, and you know, I was skeptical. I was worried that they weren't going to be able to top the first one, but in every way, Will of the Wisp is better than the first game. In every single way, the first game was topped, and I can't believe it. I literally can't believe it because with how much I loved the first game and how much I adored that game, I was scared that it wasn't going to do that. And Moon Studios, you delivered. You absolutely delivered. Ori and the Will of the Wisp gets a 10 out of 10 for me. It is a masterpiece, and I can't wait to replay it, and it might go down as one of the greatest games ever made. Honestly, I absolutely love the game, and I can't wait to replay it. I hope all of you play the first game. You need to play it, and then after you play the first game, play Will of the Wisp. It is a phenomenal masterpiece. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed my first video game review. I'm going to try to do more of these. Um, Comment below a game that you think I should play and review. I'm going to try to do a lot of these. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you Moon Studios for a phenomenal game, and I'll see you all in the next video.